Thank you so much for us for the opening of this important and really amazing exhibition. My name is Charlotte Hager. I'm the executive director here at the Community Center, and I'm not going to take up a lot of your time because we have an amazing lineup of speakers here, as you can see beside me. But I just wanted to take a few minutes to express some really heartfelt acknowledgement on behalf of the Community Center for everyone who's helped to make this exhibition and this event possible. Firstly, I want to thank Jill Valavanis for her leadership in creating this new Causeway Gallery. And also, I want to thank Ken Stokes and Dana Simpson-Stokes, who can't be here this evening, for their generous investment in the installation of the new space. I want to thank Kathleen Finnegan and Valley Vieira for bringing the Faces portrait series to our attention and offering to bring the exhibition here to the Community Center. And then I want to thank Sonoma Overnight Support, Homeless Action of Sonoma County, and Homeless Action Sonoma Incorporated for their participation in planning tonight's event. And specific thanks go to Kathy King, Francisco Kilgore, Annie Falandez, and Adrian Lobby. I'm not done yet. Gratitude is due also to June Michaels of Sonoma Food Runners for providing the small bites that we will be offering you after this program concludes. And then a big thanks also to our wine donors, the Mayo Family Winery, Jennifer Pierce Sparks, and Barbara Hyman. And thank you to all of the other Community Center staff members who have contributed to the success of this opening event. And then last, but certainly not least, many thanks to all of our speakers this evening for making themselves available and for being willing to come on stage and talk about the urgent social, economic, and above all, human issue that is homelessness. As we start the program, I just want to ask you all one more time to silence your cell phones. And then it is my honor to introduce our first speaker this evening, Kathleen Finnegan, who has been instrumental in the creation, the execution, and the exhibition of this project. Please join me in welcoming Kathleen to the stage.
Well, hello, everyone. Thank you so much for being here. I'm really thrilled to be participating in this event at this marvelous, vibrant community center. So you should be proud of having this in Sonoma. I'm a member of Homeless Action of Sonoma County, which was founded in 2013. And the other homeless groups with the same names kind of came into existence, but are independent. We're sisters organizations. So I want to tell you about how this exhibit came to be, just briefly. And that is, I went for coffee one day to meet a friend, a formerly homeless friend, who came up through Courthouse Square. At that time, they had an exhibit of fire victims from the Tubbs fire, big portraits. And that person, whose name is Kalani Raposo, said, we should do that for our people. And of course, I knew exactly what he meant. And it just was a light bulb that went off for me. It said, okay, we're gonna do it. And so we did. We were very fortunate. We had zero budget, zero. So I was looking for a photographer, and I found one from National Geographic who was very enthused about it, but she wanted a guarantee. I couldn't do it. And I found Pocho Sanchez, who is the son of the KBBF director, Alicia Sanchez, if any of you listen to that wonderful Spanish-English radio station. And Pocho is a wild man. He was a gang leader in school and druggie and you name it, got himself in lots of trouble, got clean and sober. Kalani also is a recovering addict. I am a recovering alcoholic and addict. So somehow or another, it's kind of interesting to see that three of us who were at one time hopeless could actually do something that might be of some value in society. And so the most important thing about this exhibit is that we want to give people who are voiceless a voice. We ask them, what would you like to say to the world? And you'll see what their answers are in those little plaques next to the portraits. I'm so grateful to them for having the courage to sit for us, and for Pocho, who has the extraordinary talent of allowing people just drop their defenses in front of his camera somehow or another, and you can see it in those pictures. They're spontaneous. Nobody was told to smile or say cheese. He just started talking to them and started taking these pictures, and I think they're honest, they're authentic, and you can see that. And so I think that we're hoping that this exhibit can change people's minds, and that people will see the dignity and humanity of our unsheltered, unhoused friends and neighbors. And so I'd like to introduce Kalani Raposa. I will tell you, I just referred to him. He is the instigator of all of this trouble, and he's going to tell you a little bit about his life as a homeless person. Thank you.
I don't do this very often, so I'm not very good at it, so bear with me. I was a consumer of correctional services for a number of years, about 20, and I paroled in the street-level homelessness. I had done so much time that my family had gone away, and the friends that I had were either dead or doing time. So I spent about a year on the streets trying to get my bearings and try and find my way back home. And that year on the streets actually felt longer than the time I'd served in prison. I didn't really prepare anything to say tonight, but I wrote a piece a couple years ago, and Kathleen actually managed to get it into the Gazette. And I don't think I could sum up homelessness any better than what I put in this piece, so it's okay, I'd just like to read this piece to you. Malnourished, sleep-deprived, and operating in a constant state of hypervigilance. Every thought is filtered through a flight or fight survival mode that never shuts off. Every stranger walking towards you is a potential threat. All the things you knew you'd never do are the things you do to survive every day now. Desperately wanting some place to be, but having no place to go. Where do you find hope in a city that holds so much contempt for you, so much hostility? A city that looks at you like you're a stain on the fabric of their community. How do you walk with a modicum of dignity or self-esteem when passersby train their contempt-filled eyes on you and you know you're not wanted? Imagine having to choose between your only hot meal of the day or taking a bus across town to go to the Social Security office so you can replace your Social Security card that was stolen while you were sleeping. Strapped across your back is a little duffel bag with what's left of your life. Pieces of memory and history that will be maliciously pawed through by an armed security guard of Social Security if he's charitable enough to let you bring the duffel bag inside. If not, you're faced with another hard choice. You stash the duffel bag in a bush and risk losing what little you have left? Or do you blow off Social Security knowing you can't get a job without that card? Then one of many hard truths sets in. It doesn't matter how nice my interview clothes look that I got from Catholic Charities. Doesn't matter how fly this new haircut I got from the barber down at Juilliard Park gave me. Doesn't matter how professional my resume looks that they helped me fill out at job links. They cannot take away the razor sadness that's in my eyes. Imagine, if you can, local politicians exploiting your plight as a platform to get reelected and then turn their backs on you when they finally take office. or committees formed to secure government funding to create programs that they say are to benefit me, but we never see the programs. Imagine naive, well-intended activists who have never actually experienced what I'm going through, advocating on my behalf, telling people what they think I need, rather than let me speak for myself. It makes me feel like an invalid. Imagine laying your body down on someone else's piece of earth, resting your head on a pillow of solid rock. Inside of you is an indescribable weariness draining the life from your soul as you curl up in your sleeping bag, so thin that you can feel the wind's tiny knife-like fingers slicing through it to your skin. Strewn about you are pieces of broken lives, the ones who've slept there before, photographs torn and faded, shards of broken glass and old CDs, crayons and children's toys, syringes scattered around the mountains of garbage. Combined with the smell of feces and urine, it's enough to gag a maggot. No door to close behind you, no walls to protect you from whatever the night brings. And as you close your eyes and begin to fade off to sleep, a cop comes by with his nightstick and tells you to move along. How well would you do living under these circumstances? How sound would your decision process making be? How would you feel about organizations that overpromise and underdeliver, and then brand you resistant to services because you don't want to repeat the same nightmare they already put you through once? Fuck the Brady Crocker version that you've heard about homelessness. This is homelessness.
How do I go after that? Thank you. My name is Katrina Phillips. I'm the chair of the Human Rights Commission of Sonoma County. When I became chair, it was very interesting because people walked up to me when they find out my position and they expect me to be able to change things like that. They don't understand how difficult it is. And I'm not good at it because I want things done as fast as well. It's very difficult with the ropes, the hoops, the timing. Government takes time, too much time. When we had the freeze in January, Kathleen, Homeless Action, also Heather Jackson with Sonoma County Acts of Kindness. We'd been begging the supervisors, at least if you're not going to open up more beds, at least put up some warming tents. People are going to die. No response. So we went out and Acts of Kindness purchased heating tents and heaters. I went out there in the middle of the night just to be with the people and to make sure that the cops didn't come in and make them leave. When I arrived, I had just missed the cops. The people in the tent said, "Did you see them? They were just here. They told us, we're gonna come back, and if you're sleeping, we're gonna arrest you." I'm like, it's the middle of the night. And it was so cold, I could see my breath in the tent. But they're not allowed to lie down. They're not allowed to take a nap. How inhumane. There was one time that I was on Nextdoor. I was trying to find somebody's animal, the pet that they lost. And I saw this thread. And it was these people saying, you know, that a homeless encampment down on Coffee Lane, you know, what we should really do is figure out how to get power out to them so that they can have refrigerators, make sure that they can have food. And I was like, whoa, This is great, this is awesome. So I keep reading. I'm getting so excited. Community wants to help. I said, well, this is my name and here's my phone number. And here's the phone number to Sonoma County Acts of Kindness. Silence. The thread stopped. Somebody wrote to me privately and said, I'm sorry, it's all a joke. We can't wait for them to get kicked out. I threw up in my mouth. I was so angry that this is a joke to people. Where do you find the humor in somebody else's despair? I went back on the thread and I said, how dare you? They said, somebody wrote, well, you know what? I don't care who you are. We have a really bad problem with homelessness in this county. I said, no, we have a really bad problem with humanity in this county. And I'm talking about you. Go ahead, report me, I don't care. I used to work with the homeless in Hollywood, homeless youth. Before I got that job, I had no idea that there were thousands and thousands of teenagers on the streets. When I gained their trust, they would teach me things. They would come in acting real tough. Hey, Miss Cat, yeah? Those are nice shoes. Thanks. You know, if you're on the street, you're gonna wanna tie those around your neck so nobody steals them when you're sleeping. That was information given to me by a 15-year-old who obviously learned the hard way. So when I see people that have absolutely no respect for other human beings that are less well off than they are, I tend to get really fiery. You can ask Kathleen. She has had to draw me in, pull me back, make me breathe when I'm writing on behalf of the commission. There was one time she said, Chair Phillips, I'm pretty sure you can't say that to this Board of Supervisors. I said, okay, you rewrite that part, but that's what I feel. I also met with the candidates for sheriff for the election that's coming up, one-on-one, one at a time, and I brought up these issues. And there's one in the audience right now. Thank you for being here, Mr. Tenenbaum. And he can attest that I said, the commission cannot recognize who we want to be sheriff. We can't do that, we must remain neutral. And I'm not here to listen to your campaign. I just want you to know that the relationship between your office or the sheriff office and the commission, the sheriff office and the community is shattered. So if you win the seat, get used to this face because we're going to be working together quite a bit. And the homeless issue was number one on my list because I couldn't believe what the Board of Supervisors did not do when they had every chance to help. I'd like to bring up Francisco Kilgore. Thank you.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you, Katrina, Kathleen, and Kalani. It's such an honor to be here today. Charlotte, Annie, thank you all of you for being here. We've gathered here because of one of humanity's oldest traditions, which is storytelling. The photos that you've seen upstairs in the hallway are portraits into people's lives. Little quotes are a tiny sliver of the people that you see up there. And the stories that have been shared here today are a better representation of the kinds of things that go on behind the tent or the car or the person that you may see in the streets. I'm really happy to see all of you here because it means you have your ears open and you want to hear some stories. And I think that's the most important part of community change. I've been lucky enough to work with homeless activism through Sonoma Overnight Support for the past 2 years. And I've heard many different stories. First, at the Haven, where we served lunch, being lucky enough to have a meal with different people. Next, I started an initiative called Humans of the Haven based on the New York Humans of New York, which again highlights the stories of people showing their photograph very similar to this Faces exhibit. And then again, I did the same thing on the radio, and each time you learn something new about people, individuals, about their experiences, and about humanity as a whole. For every deeply sad story that you hear of someone's most difficult day on earth, you hear an equally inspiring story of how they were able to pick themselves up. Even for one day, for 1 week, every day can be a success. So though we're all here to listen to stories, which I so much appreciate, I think we also need to address that we're all here to see some kind of change on 2 different levels. The first level is organizational change. We're lucky enough that there are many people throughout the valley and throughout the county and throughout the country who want to help those who have been experiencing homelessness for any amount of time. The change comes from our communities who can help support those organizations and from the people in those organizations, like Katrina just mentioned, who can actually help when they need it. There are various initiatives and various times in which that can happen, but the most important thing is to open ourselves up to compassion. And that is where the second change comes in, which is societal change. For many, unfortunately, the word homelessness is equivalent to the word failure or depression. And for many, it can be moments of those. But it's a challenging moment to realize that homelessness is a moment in time of someone's life. And all of us can have an experience like that. It might come out of the blue. And for us to realize that compassion and seeing each other as human beings, no matter our circumstances, no matter where we slept the previous night, is the most important thing going forward. And I hope that these stories can help you tell your friends that listening is the first key to having change on all the levels. Thank you.
I'm glad I'm just taller than the podium. I want to thank everybody that's already been thanked, and I won't take up a lot of time, but I really appreciated all those wonderful words. Most of all, I want to tell you what a thrill it is for me to look over this audience and see sitting together, one-minded, homeless people, once homeless people, housed people, super housed people, and you're all here to support this beautiful program and photo gallery. I'm going to start with a little sadness. In the last 6 months, the homeless community of Sonoma has lost 3 of our people. Victoria, who's a young woman in her 20s, who in despair went to the top of the Overlook Trail and shot herself. Roddy, it was a young man who got hold of some bad drugs and overdosed. And then just a day ago, Jason, who is a man who lived in Steamer's Landing, and he died from medical complications. All of those could have been avoided. They died because they did not have hope. So let's talk about homelessness. The big picture. Why are there so many homeless people? And I had a once homeless man tell me in 3 words exactly why. He says, it's financial climate change. These 3 words about wrap it up. We are in a place in our society where the rich are getting richer, the poor are getting poorer, and this divide keeps expanding. Every day, more people become homeless because of finances and no other reason. I mean, look at now. I'm getting phone calls every day, as I know Fish and SOS are also getting these phone calls, people needing gas money so they can get to work. It's that critical. It's daunting, but I can't fix the world. But maybe we can end homelessness together in the Sonoma City area, which has been my goal from the beginning. We have about 200 homeless here in the Sonoma City area, and those numbers are growing every day. Why do they not avail themselves of the great services that are available? Tons of money get poured into the social services system, and the homeless are not availing themselves of this money. And I know it's very frustrating from the house point of view to look at this and go, we gave them everything, I guess they want to be homeless. So I started a think tank 3 years ago, and I met with interested people at the library, and we talked about this problem. And we came up with 2 major reasons why there's homelessness and it can't be fixed the way things are going. And one of them is technology. Someone who has been born homeless or someone who's been homeless for more than 20 years has no technology. They don't have the skills. They don't have a laptop. They don't have an iPhone. And quite frankly, I have trouble making appointments and contacting people with the technology. Think what it's like to be homeless and you have to go to the library or you have to borrow somebody's phone. So technology is a huge issue. The second, probably the most important issue, is the misconceptions that we have between the 2 communities. The homeless hate the housed hate the homeless. They're afraid. It's all fear-based. And these misconceptions are, they're grounded in some reasons. I mean, the homeless think that the housed want to lock them up, want to have them arrested, want to have them moved on, won't let them get a good night's sleep, won't let them camp, won't let them eat, won't let them get social services. They feel that social services is a big conspiracy to make the rich richer, and the services are so difficult to access because they don't want them to get them. The housed feel the homeless are lazy, they're criminals. They see able-bodied men standing on the plaza drinking beer and they go, why don't they get a job? It's very, very difficult when you do not have a computer, you do not have a telephone, you do not have a social security number, you do not have a driver's license, you do not have transportation, and most of all, you do not have any hope. So one day I got my final push. Thank you, Harry Boone. He stood up at one of these meetings and he says, it's no longer just you. He says, Annie, I want you to start using the word we. We as a community can do this. And I took that and ran with it. So I started Homeless Action Sonoma. After working with Homeless Action in Santa Rosa, and they blessed me to use their name. And I learned a lot from them, and they continue to be very supportive and, you know, like sister organization. We formed a mission statement which has 4 pillars. The first being the most important, which is to educate. Educate both the homeless and the housed. The second is to innovate. We have to come up with some changes. We have to figure out how to connect the homeless with the services, wonderful services that are available. The third is to integrate. Let's integrate the 2 communities so that we like each other. And then when you like someone, you're willing to help them. And then the third and last is to create. So without a facility, without funds, without staff, we are presently working with 48 clients. We have housed 7 people. We've gotten 9 people jobs. 2 now have driver's licenses. We've gotten haircuts, benefits, medical care, clothing. We have 4 in rehab now. And these are all stories that come out of our programs. We started Sunday dinners 2 years ago. They started at Depot Park, then with COVID, they moved to my backyard, and now we're having them at La Luz. And 5 o'clock every Sunday, housed and homeless meet together, sit down and have a meal. All I ask is that you come and sit down and have a meal and talk to someone sitting next to you. It's amazing how friendships are made. We have a car mechanic who made friends with a young man who has a broken down truck he inherited from his grandfather. He is helping him rebuild his truck. My favorite story is Marie Kohler, who is an amazing woman. She befriended a veteran. He had been homeless on the streets of Sonoma for over 20 years. He's a disabled veteran. He's inarticulate. He cannot speak for himself. He had medical issues. She took him for 6 months. She took him to every appointment and she spoke for him and she got him all his benefits. He is now housed at the Altamira Housing Complex, happy, productive, and safe. So it works. The other thing over the time we've noticed is that there's lots and lots of nonprofit organizations and they're not working together. We're working really hard. We're forming collaborations with La Luz and Saves and COTS and of course Homeless Action. And I'm thrilled to be sharing this with SOS. This is our second function we've shared together and I hope it will grow into many more. We're working with grants with the ARPA funds to do collaborative grants instead of just for me. And in fact, we have one in the works now where it's Homeless Action, it's SOS in the Sonoma Community Health Center, and one other. And that would be wonderful because together we can share services and share money. So now it comes down, and then my last program, which I'm really, really proud of, is called Sonoma Professionals Share. We have asked professionals in town to donate their services for 1 year to one client. We presently have, I believe, 6 dentists, 2 oral surgeons, a doctor, 4 therapists, 2 mechanics, a number of hairdressers, and it's been a wonderful, wonderful program in many ways. First, clients are getting services they need. Second, professionals are learning that these are wonderful human beings that just need a little help. My dentist took a young man who was 23 years old. He was born homeless, been homeless for 23 years. He had had his teeth mangled in a bicycle accident. And so he would talk like this. And I was talking to him one day, and I says, "What do you want in life?" And he says, "Oh, what I really want is a girlfriend." So Dr. Forsted and Dr. Boynton united together, and they took him as a client. He now has the most beautiful smile, and he talks without using his hands in front of his face. And yes, he has a girlfriend. What does any 23-year-old want? So now I'm down to the 4th pillar, which is to create. We've been planning to create a 2-phase homeless shelter. One is small houses, which we have, and we're ready to put on property. We bought property next door to Baker and Cook. It has turned into a much bigger project than we ever anticipated. We became partners with the county, which means they have a more involved say in what we do. Our original plan was to just flatten the land, put the houses up, and get the shelter done. It was supposed to be done by Christmas. Of course, I missed the mark. Christmas came and went, and the county says, "No, you can't do it that way." They said, "You have to do a full grading for the entire property and for the permanent facility you are planning in the future." So now we have to, now this entails retaining walls, bioswales, drainage, ditching, installation of water, sewage, electricity, fire hydrants. It's massive. So we hunkered down and we hired all the experts we needed, and we're getting everything ready to be submitted. I'm hoping it'll be submitted by Tuesday of next week. That's what they promised me. But, excuse me, I had a little thing done in my throat and it bothers me from time to time. We have raised $400,000 for the community to date. We have gotten a $400,000 grant from the county, and that was supposed to cover all our costs of the small village. And it would have, except for this, this new development. It has brought in, it has cost us another $450,000 in soft costs. That's all the experts we've had to hire. And then it will be another $1 million in the grading, you know, to do all the connections, all the sewage, all the Caltrans, all the so on and so forth. So someone says, what are you going to do, Annie? What are you going to do now? You only have $800,000. And my answer is, I'm going to push forward. I'm working very hard to get other grants. I'm working with a number of philanthropic organizations, and it's looking good. And I also believe that the community of Sonoma, if they could raise $4 million for Pets Lifeline, they can raise the money for human beings. Because my goal, and some of you have heard me say it, and at first it sounded foolish, is I want to make the movie and franchise the program. Thank you. It's not COVID, it's surgery. Isn't that bad when surgery is better than COVID? I have a contractor who has identified 2 other sites, one in Richmond and one in Hayward, where they want to copy our proposal. So it is moving onward. So I just want to leave you with one thought. Be kind. Homeless people are so used to being taken advantage of, and I just got to share one more story. It's kind of a sad one. I started sad, I'll end sad. There's a woman who's homeless and she works in this community, and she lives in her truck and she works very hard. She also helps more homeless people than both our organizations together. Her truck broke down. She needed it fixed immediately. She brought it to one station and they told her it's going to be $700 and they couldn't get to it for a week. She brought it to another station and they told her it was going to be $3,500. And she says, well, I guess I'll wait a week. And they go, well, you got to pay $200 for the estimate. She didn't have $200. She barely had the $700 for the first shop. So she left it there and she said, what am I going to do? And I said, I don't know, I'll go down and talk to them. So now another day has gone by. I go down and talk to them and I said, you know, I've brought my car here before and you've never charged me for an estimate. And they said, yes, we do. And we're charging $45 a day to store that piece of junk here. So I did appeal to their compassion and I got it down to $45 and get the truck out of here in an hour. I guess the point is we need to look at the whole big picture. We need to treat each other like human beings and understand that we're not all fortunate and that we could be if we had hope. Thank you.
Thank you again, Annie, for sharing that. So now, as you can see on your programs, we're going to have a little panel, a live lived experience panel conversation. So talk amongst yourselves while we move the chairs around, and we'll be right back. Okay, great. Let's do it right here. Sure, if you want to do that. So this is a lived experience panel. This is Kalani. Would you just like to introduce yourself really quickly? Kalani, what's your name? Come on. Wonderful. I'm Francisco Kilgore. Just look. So we're gonna have a panel. These two gentlemen have been generous enough to share some of their experiences. They both have lived experiences with homelessness. But before we get there, I want them to talk a little bit about what they're doing now because it's pretty incredible. We'll start with you, Chloe. What are you up to these days?
After I found housing, I went to work for an organization in Santa Rosa. I'm not sure if I can say their name, but they run through Catholic Garrities. And I was a homeless outreach worker there, and I worked primarily with people that they labeled as resistant to services. They weren't really resistant to services, they were resistant to be put in the same aggravated to that organization once. And so now I still do outreach, I just do it on my own. A lot of times that I had when I was working with Catholic Charities, I took on, and in my spare time, I find resources for them. Basically, whatever kind of help they need, and it's still important for me to check in with them, what help looks like to them, because it looks different for everybody. For some people, other people, they need, a couple blankets. I do that because I was able to get into housing through the kindness and generosity of handful of other people, and I feel a responsibility to give that back.
I'm currently the food director for SOS. I run the soup kitchen here in town, and we make about 50,000 meals a year. Yeah. Between 200 and 250 a day, Monday to Friday. And it's a job. I feel a sense of giving back too because SOS gave me a chance when I was homeless.
Thank you, Dan. What was I going to say? Yes, Dan also manages many different volunteers. We serve delivery meals to people who are homebound. People come in, many different people. So it's quite an operation that Dan is running right now, which is very cool. Thanks for being here, Dan. He's been up since 6. Okay, so now that we've talked about what is going on now, I would hope that you could just tell us a little bit about what you were doing before you started experiencing homelessness. And I'll start with Dan this time.
I was a stay-at-home dad for about 15 years. My wife worked for County and Maroon, and I raised my 2 kids. My wife had heart problems and had to retire, and I wasn't able to find any work to help support us, so we got evicted and started our thing being homeless for a couple of years. Then SOS was the only shelter that would take us as a unit. Everybody else wanted to separate me from them or separate my kids and my wife, and we just wouldn't do that. So we finally got into SOS, and through hard work, I guess, found a place. I was a musician that used to dabble in heroin,
And then I became a heroin addict that used to dabble in music. And couldn't support myself with music anymore, so I started killing. I listened to burgers. I didn't know about the strike law at the time. And yeah, the burgers started accumulating. Next thing I know, I was facing 187 years of Kentucky life. I ended up doing about 20 years on through a plea bargain. And I play music now. I don't do heroin anymore. I've been doing it for 20 years. It feels good. And by the way, I really love this town. I mean, I live in Santa Rosa, and I wish we had the things going on in our town that you guys have going on here. And for some reason, we just can't get into it. I don't know. The feel.
Thanks so much for sharing that. That's it. So the second question I would like to ask is, what's something about homelessness that you think only someone who's experienced it would know?
Well, you spoke earlier about sleep deprivation, and I think that's a big issue. I also, something that I experienced with homelessness is that I would wake up and spend half my day looking for food for my family. I would worry about them the entire time that I wasn't actually with them. And then we would look and try to find a place to stay. And that's exhausting. And you don't have time, you don't have energy to write a resume, to get dressed up, to go look for work so that you could try to pull yourself out. And it just becomes just a circle. And that's it.
And one of the things that I experienced that I think most people that aren't homeless or never experience it think about is that when you're homeless, the shared value system that the community has, things like generosity, kindness, peaceful conflict resolution, things like that, you have to abandon those values and adopt values that are going to keep you alive on the streets. And those values are generally completely opposite of what the rest of the community is living by. And so you feel this tension, this us and them tension. And when you live this value system for so long, it becomes a part of you, your own DNA. And then people come along and say, hey, we want to help, and they put a roof over your head, and they give you a safe place to sleep. And I think there's this expectation that the roof should change everything immediately, and you should go back to who you were, and it doesn't work like that. Most of us come in from the streets suffering from PTSD and alphabet soup of mental health issues. And now we've got this value system that's completely opposite. We're expected to follow rules and abide by the structure that we're not used to living by. And that's not to say that we shouldn't be held accountable or responsible. But there's a point in time where I need to be re-socialized. I need to be taught the responsibility needs. Because based on my value system, the definition of responsibility is completely different than what everybody else is thinking. And so it takes a lot of patience. You also have to be willing to do the work. And we're talking about the inside work. I know a lot of cats out there that they want housing, but they're not ready to do the work, and they become chronically homeless. And I'm not quite sure how to help them. Because what woke me up isn't necessarily going to wake them up. So, yeah, when I think about the chronically homeless, I think about the value system, and I don't think people ever really think about how much differently we think from on the streets opposed to when we have to safe place to sleep.
Thanks so much. Another question that I get asked a lot as a service provider is like, what are some misconceptions about homelessness? And so I thought I would ask you both the same question. On myths.
I'm gonna have to think about that.
We're not all drug addicts. We grieve, we cry, we bleed, we do the same things everybody else does. And one of the huge misconceptions is that we're lazy. I would think that if anything, the Tubbs fire would have taught us that none of us have control over everything that happens in our lives. You know, there's these variables that we can't factor in, and one day you wake up and, you know what, the fire came through your town and you don't have a home anymore. It just gets me that when there's a catastrophe that people can relate to, there's empathy and sympathy for these individuals. But when it's something they can't relate to, like being addicted to drugs or, you know, this host of other things that you can't relate to, there's no empathy. I don't get that. I mean, it doesn't matter how we ended up homeless or whose fault it is. In the end, we're homeless, and trying to assign blame doesn't get us house. And it's frustrating, but a lot of people out there want to work. You know, they want the same thing as everybody else, because we're all the same. Just some people have the benefit of having a home right now, others don't.
Okay, I'm gonna ask a similar question, which is a follow-up question, which is, what do you wish people knew about the homeless community? That's gonna lead you in.
Well, I wish people could see the community that we see in Sonoma of the homeless people. It's like every other community. There are people that they care about each other, they look out for each other, it seems. It's really, they're really no different. So we are no different, not they, that's horrible. I wish people could come and see how everybody interacts after they come and get food, you know? I mean, they hang out. It's pretty amazing. What's the question?
You know, about halfway through my homelessness, I ended up in the encampment over in Santa Rosa called Camp Michaela. And one of the things that struck me is, I'm a writer, so I spend more time observing than I do like being the center of attention. It's, when you're homeless, when I was at Camp Michaela, I saw almost like the dawn of man. People making tools to get by each day. Homeless people are some of the most creative people I think I've ever met in my life. They can take the garbage that people discard and turn it into something useful. And that was amazing to me. And these people that are accused of being ignorant and having no political savvy, I watched the community go through every form of politics that's ever been known and trying it on, seeing what's going to work for this community. You would expect that from a homeless community, but why not? There are people in a situation that need to find some sense of order and structure, that need to find ways to get by each day, and so they look around and see what's available and they make it work for them. And the other side of that is I wish the homeless community could see that if they just flip the script and take those skills and apply them in other areas, it would enrich their lives and they could help themselves up too. Because I don't see this thing as one-sided. When I was homeless, there were certain responsibilities that I had to fulfill. And one of the things that when I work with people I do outreach with, one of the things I do is trying to teach them how to be more responsible in their homelessness. Maybe there's not work out there. Maybe there's no housing out there, but let's act as if there is housing out there and there is work. So that when you come across that, you're ready for it. You're prepared to take that on. But if you just sit around and act like it's never going to happen, so I shouldn't do anything, it's not going to get me anywhere. Yeah, I'm still working on that part.
So you both experienced homelessness for different amounts of times and for different from different circumstances. I'm curious if you could tell us about what were some of the things that helped you find housing and move on.
For me, it was the burden of my family. If my wife's sick, I don't think I could have lived if she would have died on the street. And it was a lot of hard work. It was learning how to not be homeless. It was learning how to save, how to budget. It was a lot of hard work. And you're right, a lot of work that some people aren't willing to do. For me, it was rapid rehousing through 2 COTS in Petaluma. It was also being able to go to cooking school in Ignacio at Homeward Bound. Yeah, it was amazing because I came into being homeless with not much any skill. You know, I mean, I ran out of house, but whatever. I mean, it takes skill, but you can't put that on the resume. And being able to go learn how to cook and have something that was marketable, have some confidence behind you was amazing. And it was the start.
My primary driving force to finding housing was I was branded with that resisted services plan. And for state rules said I'd been locked up so long I wouldn't be able to integrate back into the community, that I didn't have the skill or the resources. And it pissed me off. I didn't want to become another one of those statistics, so I asked for help from anyone I thought they could help me. And the other thing is that I wanted to advocate for myself because nobody can tell my story except me. And rapid rehousing helped a lot. Let's see. That was probably what got me into housing, rapid rehousing, and then the CDC, those guys. I didn't know this when I was working outreach with Catholic Charities. I was getting people signed up for Section 8, never realizing that I'm more than qualified. And after I left that job, it dawned on me that maybe I should sign up for Section 8. And that's, it's been a godsend, especially during the pandemic. So it was CDC and rapid rehousing and Section 8.
Well, I'm so grateful that both of you have been able to share a tiny sliver of your experiences and your stories. And I'm hoping, since we have this tiny sliver of our community, but a big-hearted sliver, I'm wondering if you could share anything that they can do to help, either on a small scale, on a big scale, anything that you can think of.
There's a guy that he's doing these housing first seminars in the room prepared in Sonoma County. He's John. He has what I call the Ian Creed. It's when he's working with the homeless, he tells them, "I'm not going to do anything to you. I'm not going to do anything for you, but I'm willing to do it with you." And a lot of times, what happens is people want to help and they end up enabling. And then the homeless end up feeling entitled that they have this coming. And what I do is I tell folks, if you want to help the homeless, don't do it for them, do it with them. If they need a coat, go to the store with them and buy a coat. If they need food, go to the store with them. You know, become part of that process. Because if you just cater to them, it's so easy to get caught up in an entitlement, get complacent, and then start expecting things. And then you get this codependent relationship going on with the homeless and the people that want to help, and it's unhealthy. It really is. And I know for some people that may sound cruel, but people need to do for themselves. So if you want to help the homeless, do it with them, not for them.
I would like people to come down and volunteer with me.
Yeah.
You can stop by the Grange Monday through Friday, come in the back back door, ask for me, and, we'll get you the volunteer.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah. I think it's really special again. I feel so grateful to be able to share the stage with you two who've shared your stories and your time with us. So I'd love to give them a big round of applause. All right, thank you. I think the exhibit is continuing and there will be refreshments. Thank you all for being here.